Hello, my name is Crystal Fletcher, and welcome to All About Books. If you love books and you're interested in finding out what inspires authors to write them, please subscribe to my channel. Today, I have internationally acclaimed award-winning author Lisa de Nikolits with me. Lisa has published 9 novels, and we'll be speaking with her about her most recent novel, The Occult Persuasion
Oh, that's upside down, my love.
and the Anarchist Solution. Thank you, Lisa. Oh my goodness. Now, the book features 2 alternating narratives between a recently retired couple from Oakville. We've got Lyndon and Margot, and they embark on this incredible around the world for however long we want trip. But what was to be a retirement celebration quickly derails into a very different kind of adventure for the husband and wife. So without further ado, thank you so much, Lisa, for agreeing to be on All About Books.
It's a pleasure, Crystal. Thank you. And may I just say to your viewers out there that this is my first Zoom experience. So thank you very much for bringing me into this century. So I hope I get this right.
Oh, you'll be wonderful. And just to sit and listen to your accent is going to be such a treat for me.
Thank you.
So Lisa, you're originally from South Africa and you came to Canada in 2000. So how has South Africa influenced your writing?
Very, very much. But in fact, all my travels have influenced my writing. I was a person who was never going to leave South Africa. I always knew, that the country would change. It had to change, and I wanted to be a part of that. I was very, very proud of being a South African, and being part of that, the Rainbow Nation with Nelson Mandela was one of the highlights of my life. So I was a very content person there, and I'm very patriotic to the land, and I felt very African. I still do, and still miss so much of that. But what happened was my sister went to live in Australia. And I'm a magazine designer by trade, a magazine art director, which is actually why I'm wearing this rather flashy top, which has a lot of magazine covers on it.
It's
which
beautiful.
My dad gave me. Thank you. My dad gave it to me many years ago because he's like, hey, you've worked on a lot of these magazines, which is true. Cosmopolitan, Vogue, Living, etc., etc. So the thing was this: in South Africa, there was a very, very small magazine environment. And my sister went to Australia, and she said, you would not believe the magazines here. So I was like, I could be an international art director. So of course that excited me, and that's why I went. And I did get a job there. I got a job with Vogue Living, and I worked with Vogue. But something about Australia and me just didn't really gel. So I had been there for 2 years, and I remember I was at my day job and I was flipping through a stock library book because that's what we had then when we were looking for images. And I saw a picture of the CN Tower. And I thought, I've got a cousin in Toronto. So I remember very clearly, I rushed back to my desk, typed her an email. Hey, Em, can I come and stay with you for a while? My poor cousin. She was really very, very kind. She emailed back immediately. Of course you can. So that's what I did. I booked a round the world ticket and I came to Toronto, which I actually thought was where Vancouver is and that New York was south of it. Okay, geography is not my strong point. So I'm like, so where am I? And the thing was this: I really felt like Canada welcomed me in a way that Australia never did. So then I just stayed. But obviously I have the Australian connection. My sister and my mum and dad are still there. So my husband and I go back every 2 years. And that's why I wrote the Occult Persuasion and the Anarchist Solution set in Australia. It had to happen eventually.
Okay.
A book in Australia, yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. Now, you have Lyndon and Margot, they've shared a long history, a long life together. And when you were developing these characters, Lisa, What was the most important aspect of their personality that you wanted the readers to grasp right away?
Well, that they were very stuck in their ways, and that they had expectations of one another, and that they had become used to one another, and also that they were dealing with their own personal crises individually, but their relationship was at a point where they couldn't communicate it with each other. So it took an event like what happened in the book for them to actually realize what it was that was worrying them, and then seek a solution. And then, I don't want to give too much away, but the plot will unfold. But that was a thing. It was a couple in a crisis, which they didn't even realize they were in a crisis, which was interesting. They, although Lyndon knew something was wrong, but he didn't know what to do with it. So he didn't have to.
He certainly didn't. Now, Lisa, when you were writing them, did you find you were more sympathetic to one character over the other?
I definitely like Margot more. Like sometimes Lyndon drove me a little bit nuts.
Mhm.
I got a little impatient with him, but maybe, but I could also relate to him. That's the thing, is that I think probably I could relate more to Lyndon than I did to Margot. Yeah, exactly. But I was concerned at one point, like, this guy, but he was really likable to me in so many ways with his struggles, because, as I say, like, he's really relatable from his work point of view. His work was his life. And he had
Yes.
all these concerns about, what are we doing about the environment? And what can we do to make things better? And so, really related to him on those points of views. He's quite a tortured soul, but not the greatest communicator on the planet,
No.
was he?
No. Um, I was hoping today, Lisa, that you could read from your book, Author's Pick, but can you just share with us before you read why you've selected this section to read?
Well, I'm going to read probably one of the most irreverent pieces in the book. And it has Lyndon in it, but it also has one of the anarchists, Sean, who I just loved to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to read from this passage is because, although it's quite startling, it's because it's kind of fun and irreverent. And to me, that's also a lot what the book is about. And then there's Lyndon's reaction. So I just think it's a fun part of the book. So I enjoy reading it. So
Okay. We look forward to hearing it.
thank you, love. So basically, Lyndon is on the beach and he is with Sean, who is one of the fellow anarchists who works in the barber shop. We carried on walking, and for a while, neither of us said anything, for which I was grateful, because I managed to keep up, and Sean, very kindly, kept it slow. It's all about nature for me, Sean burst out, and I turned to look at him. What is? Anarchy, he said. I love the earth. Yes, I know what you mean, I said, waving my hand around. Look at this, so unspoiled, so beautiful. Meanwhile, we're killing the planet with garbage and pollution. And I was about to go on my garbage rant when Sean interrupted me. He grabbed me by the arm and we stood face to face, and I felt slightly uneasy all of a sudden. No, mate, he said, you're not getting my point. I really love her. He dropped to his knees and started caressing the beach sand. I make love to her. She's my sexual partner. I don't need or want anybody except for the earth. And it's not some mother issue before you start analyzing me. It's a nature thing. I see, I said. But I didn't. And I was concerned he was going to take off his trousers and demonstrate exactly what he meant. But to my relief, he got up. Even decaying earth is sensual, he said. Flowers, the bees, all of it. It's eco-eroticism. There are lots of us out there. People think it's weird. What's weird about making love to a flower? It's the most natural thing in the world. I nodded, trying to imagine it and trying not to imagine it. Is that why you're an anarchist? I asked, trying to change the subject. He shook his head. No, I was into anarchy first, but then I realized that the earth was my sexual partner for life. Anarchy frees my spirit so I can engage with my true love. Anarchists are true free thinkers. We're into freedom and self-expression at every level. We don't discriminate. I've always loved nature so much, so I started meditating on my feelings for the earth and the flowers and the grass and the mud. And then one thing led to another. Now she's all I need. I think I've gone as far as I can today, I said faintly. And I didn't mean the walk, but Sean took it that way and he patted me kindly. You did very well, mate, he said. So and I think why I love that as well is because what I wanted to do with this book is give people a fun read in a time when the world is really not being a fun place, because I wrote the book pre-COVID, but the world was still not a fun place even then. But I wanted to give them something they would enjoy reading. But I also wanted to say we can think about life differently, even daily as we go about our daily things. Let's, I'm not saying we go down Sean's path. No, I'm not saying that. But be a sort of an anarchist in a sense and think, how can I approach anything differently? Relationships, different point of view.
Well, I must confess, I did read that section twice because I was like, I've never heard of this. So I learned something new reading your book too.
I actually think there are a very small percentage of people out there. I think it was something, I'm not even sure how I got to that. Sometimes, the things that come to one in the book, and that's the thing with the Occult Persuasion and the Anarchist Solution, and I keep looking down because I keep peering at the book, is that so much of the book came to me, the evil nurse, Nancy, so many of the characters, they came to me, and writing it was almost like, being possessed, really. I had very little control over a lot of stuff, and the ideas just sort of flooded in, and I rolled with it very gratefully. So as surprised as many of the readers, I have to say, with what came out.
Oh no, I think that's fantastic that you were able to roll with it like that. Is there a moment in particular where after you finished writing you were like, wow, thank you? Like any character in particular that you can share with us?
Oh, so much of it. In fact, I think I took moments, like regular intervals, to say, universe, thank you. And I think I even dedicate the book to the mystical place, to my husband, of course. He's a very, very painful, patient man, very, very patient man, to Bradford Dunlop, and then to the mystical places where stories come from. Because at so many points, things would happen, and I'd be like, where did that come from? And I have to, don't think about it now, just carry on writing and be so, so grateful. So this book was a gift from the writing guides to me. So I'm, extremely grateful.
It's the best feeling when you hit that zone.
It's magical, isn't it? It really is.
It really is.
I often feel like, sometimes it's almost like putting yourself into a sort of a tide where you know that it's going to sweep you away and then you're not going to emerge for a while. That's why, Brad is really patient, because there's something about going into the writing of a book where you're not going to emerge for some time. The rest of the world ceases to exist, and so you get drawn along in this thing. And sometimes I almost fear that sort of, undertow of the book writing process. It can almost, be a bit, well, it's very distracting. So, and, but in a good way.
Yeah. Well, you're a prolific writer. Like, you pump out the books incredibly fast. So you're obviously visited by these mystic forces quite frequently, but what is your secret? How do you pump them out so quick, Lisa?
I think it's an obsession. I actually have, I have a hat pin. I at one point was collecting many pins, and one of the things was it became an obsession. But I don't think it became an obsession. It's always been an obsession. pretty much the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life. Well, I love art directing, but I wanted to write. The thing was, I did not like writing as a day job. My first job was as a feature writer for a magazine, Homes and Gardens. I found it terribly, terribly stressful.
Yeah.
I guess because maybe in a sense there's a little bit of an anarchist in me, and it just felt too rigid, that kind of writing.
Yes.
And luckily for me, the publisher fired his what was called layout artist at the time, and he said to me, "It's very easy, you just do this." I'm like, "This is such fun," and I've loved that with such a passion. And then I'd go home and write my stories at night. So the stories keep coming, and in fact, I've sort of had to put the what do you say, like hold back the dam a little bit, because
Yeah.
there's work to do on the Rage Room, which is coming up. There's work to do on Mad Dog and the Sea Dragon, which is my book with Inanna in 2021. And so I've got a lot of self-editing work. So it's almost like I'm saying to all those creative people, look, I have to just put you in a holding tank for a moment, because I even have a sequel in mind for the Rage Room, but I can't go there because I just, there's a lot going on in my head.
Oh, lucky. That's very lucky. And while you were just talking about it, if we could take a step back, you mentioned about the anarchist in you. So did you insert yourself directly into the anarchist in the novel?
I didn't, but the thing is, I've had difficulties in life. For example, I went to a convent and I was the only person to be sort of removed from the confession booth because I would not confess the right sins. So things like that. I was expelled from the convent, but then I was reinstated because the nuns had to admit they were wrong for expelling me. So you see, Crystal, along the way, I have not done things the usual way, and it has caused me a lot of difficulty. So whilst I haven't done the things in the book, I struggle within the normal way of, my head works in a different way. So which is not always easy when you're part of the world. So I related on that level, but the things that I didn't directly transcribe into the book. No, these guys had their own issues. So.
Yeah. They did. As I was reading, I was like, is any of this Lisa? So
a lot of people wonder. And the thing is, so this is book number 9, and there's crazy characters in like all my books, and I think people wonder if there's a part of me in each of those characters. And I mean, certainly they come from my head, so I've thought of them, but some of them have startled me. I've been like, oh my goodness. But I think what's interesting is to take one's own experience. For example, the fact that I do struggle with authority, and I do struggle within rules. That's also why I really couldn't live in Australia. It was a really rule-bound country, very, very much. And so I took that inability, that struggle within myself, but then morphed it into something completely different. I think that's the magic of writing, is to, they say write what you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean write about yourself. So that's the raw clay, but then you turn it into a different sculpture. So, and then those magical things happen, and you're like, whoa, that's a really cool sculpture. So, and thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And when you were writing the novel, did you have the title in your head right from the beginning, or did that come to you later?
It came to me from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my goodness, the word occult. And firstly, I have to say, I kept pronouncing it wrong. I said to my husband, the occult persuasion. And he's like, look, you're going to write a book. You can't keep wandering around calling it the occult. You have to say it. So I'm like, the occult. So for months, I was wandering around the house going, the occult, the occult. You see, that's an example of the things he has to put up with. So the occult persuasion came to me because actually we were watching a Forensic Files and someone was murdered. and they said there was an occult bruise on her neck. And I'm like, oh, pause the movie, just pause it. And
Yeah.
a occult bruise. So I went up and I went and looked that up, and it's like, something that appears and it has no discernible scientific reason. And then it was like this slamming into my head of capitalism is the occult bruise on the body of the earth. And then I'm like, okay, you're presenting a problem. We have an occult bruise, but what is the solution? The solution is anarchy, the anarchist solution. And then I thought, my goodness, and thank heavens we have Inanna, because dearly beloved Inanna, like they are such free thinkers. When I came to Luciana and I'm like, Luciana, I have this new book, The Occult Persuasion and the Anarchist Solution. And she's like, send it along. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So I owe so much to Inanna. I burgeoned as a writer, if that's the right word, blossomed because of Inanna, because they have not said, you need to write within this category, you need to be restricted within this genre. And so I'm just amazed by my good fortune with Inanna.
Well, you've had quite a journey. Like 9 books is a fantastic journey, and more to come.
And more to come. Yeah, and 2 more to come. Touch wood.
Can you tell us a little bit about what is to come?
Yes, the Rage Room. I'm so excited about the Rage Room. And actually, the Rage Room has got some really good advance praise. Terry Fallis has praised it, which was just amazing. Amy Jones, it's got some really good advanced reader feedback, which is always a relief, because you're like,
Yes.
is this book anything? So very, out the gate, people are very positive about it. It's a dystopian novel. It's set in 2055, so it's not that far in the future, but the entire world is made of plastic and nature is completely obliterated. The story is told from Sharps Barkley's point of view. He's a husband and a perfectionist. Now, crazy guy, and I love him to pieces. He has terrible OCD, and he has these panic attacks, and he's trying his hardest to be the perfect husband and the perfect father. But he's failing. He's absolutely failing. So on one Christmas Eve, he's about to lose his job, be exposed as a fraud. Everything is going to implode in Sharps's life. So he goes home, and this is going to sound really macabre. He kills his family in the perfect Hallmark moment. The Christmas carols are playing, the Christmas tree is up, the moment of perfection. He kills them. Then he realizes what he's done, like days later, and he just wants to rewind. So he gets in touch with people who have a time travel device. Crystal, I have to tell you,
I'm like,
time travel? Never again. I had a lot of help from a wonderful colleague and friend that I work with. His name is Colin Frings. He's a young guy, and he's really up on all this technology stuff. And so he and I worked on the actual plotting of the time travel, because I'd be like, yeah, but it's fiction. He goes back. No, Colin's like, no, this has to be believable. And then he'd send me all these links that I didn't understand. So I'd rewrite something according to what I thought he meant, and I'd send it back. He'd like, no, that doesn't work. And I'd be like, well, can't it work? And he's like, no, it can't work. So I think The Rage Room is probably one of the books I've worked the hardest on to try and get that science fiction time travel thing right. So I won't be But it was a real adventure and a journey. And so I have to admit, I know one always feels this way about the book that's coming out, but I'm so extremely fond of it, and I just can't wait for it to be part of the world. I've poured so much into this, so much of what's happening in the world, and you know.
And that's fall of 2021, you said?
That one is fall. That one's coming out soon, my love. That one will be out in October.
Oh, fabulous. Yes. So we've got some new reading to do soon then.
Some new reading to do, yes. And then Mad Dog and the Sea Dragon, that's for 2021.
Oh my goodness. How do you keep them straight, Lisa? Like, are you writing more than one book at one time then?
Pretty much I try and compartmentalize. Yes. I also, you know, it's very much a mindful thing. That's where I put the mindfulness into play. It's like, I mark off chunks of time and then I'm like, and now I'm focused on this. And I'm an extremely disciplined person, which is funny when you say, like, when I say of myself that there's this sort of like, you know, wild sort of anarchist side, which there is, but on the other side, I'm an extremely rigid. I'll set myself deadlines and I will make those deadlines even if I have the worst headache and I'm dying of pain. I'll make sure I do that. So sometimes a little tough on myself that way, but it gets the job done. So
It certainly does.
I look at sporting analogies. You know, I watch these sporting people and I think, you know, also I did karate back in the day and I remember my sensei saying like 100 more push-ups and then, you know, you just do it. So sometimes I'll just be like, just do it. So.
Oh, Lisa, I'm so impressed by your discipline. And I'm also absolutely thrilled that you agreed to come on and speak with me today about your book and your books that are coming out. I appreciate your time. And for anyone, all the listeners, I will provide a link below to Lisa's website so you can learn more about Lisa and her Anarchist. And also, if you'd like to purchase the book, there'll be the option there as well. So,
which is lovely, love. And let's mention that Inanna's having a summer sale.
oh, yes.
Off. So there's a coupon that's summer 20. And so there's that bonus. So it's a tough time for publishers. So
Yes.
all help is appreciated. So sorry, love, quick sales pitch. I interrupted.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you. But thank you again. It's been an absolute.
Thank you very much for having me as a guest.